time is running out to implement a coronavirus test, track and trace plan. A warning from NHS leaders that delay risks severe consequences.
Scotland's First Minister is to announce details of how it will begin easing its lockdown, currently the strictest in the UK.
As schools in England prepare for the return of more pupils, we'll find out how nurseries have been looking after the very youngest children during the pandemic.
Temperature screening at Heathrow Airport as passengers and the aviation industry wait for the government's quarantine plans. The country's largest airport starts detection trials at border control.
The number of deaths in the UK of people with coronavirus increased by 363 to over 35,700. Many of those were NHS workers, but the government's bereavement scheme to help their families didn't cover support roles.
We're all on minimum wage.
This hospital cleaner appealed directly to the Prime Minister to extend it.
If I die fighting coronavirus, my partner isn't allowed an indefinite leave to remain.
The government has now included support workers in the scheme, but there are calls for it to do more, to give further safeguards and benefits to foreign NHS workers who are putting themselves at risk from the virus.
Well, let's update you with what's happening in the papers this morning. The Daily Mirror is where we're starting. Among many of today's front pages, carrying photos of people going to Britain's beaches in the sunshine yesterday. The headline reads, Trace Against Time. It's describing the government target to track 10,000 new cases of coronavirus a day by the 1st of June. You heard Chris Mason talk about that a little earlier. That's also the same date, actually, when schools in England are expected to reopen.
Let's have a look at the front page. The Times newspaper reporting on the fall in hospital admissions for those with coronavirus. It says the figure has dropped below 10,000 for the first time since the start of lockdown. The paper also carrying a picture of migrants using a dinghy to cross the Channel from France.
The Daily Express leads on reports that the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, is promising a new war on obesity. This is after figures showed a link between diabetes and coronavirus deaths. The paper says the Prime Minister is leading by example and features a photo of Boris Johnson in his gym gear.
And look at the Scotsman for you, leading on plans by First Minister Nicola Sturgeon to unveil a 4-phase route map detailing how Scotland will move out of lockdown after deaths from the virus fell for the 3rd week in a row. We'll find out a little bit more about that during the programme this morning. And the picture is of a police officer patrolling Portobello Beach in Edinburgh yesterday on the hottest day of the year so far. We are talking quite a bit this morning about what people have been doing in the warm as the weather's improved. And this is not necessarily weather-related, but it's just people may well have seen them, these queues, as some McDonald's outlets have opened for drive-through only. The queues for these, I've seen a few of them myself, they're extensive. There are a lot of people prepared to wait a long time.
I was listening to the radio yesterday and someone called in one of the radio stations and this gentleman said that he had made a round trip of 100 miles. It was his wife's birthday. A round trip of 100 miles to get McDonald's and brought it back for his wife.
Necessary journey?
Are you sticking to the food theme?
Yes. So I think a few of the papers picking up on this thing on a slightly different food theme, scones. So the Queen has released some details about how the royal scone, or scone, I'll just put it out there, is used egg or not egg?
I've never made scones in my life. I don't like scones. Well, I've had scones once, buttermilk scones, which changed my mind about scones. But
well, whether you like them
or
not, they do exist.
I know.
And there is an argument as to whether to use the eggs in them or not use the eggs in them.
Oh, OK. Do you make scones?
No.
So would you use eggs or not use eggs?
I think I probably would. The Queen has said that she uses a couple of eggs. Mary Berry, for example, uses eggs. But then Delia Smith, and I didn't know this until I just read this, Delia Smith does not.
Can we just start off the row? Jam first or second? Jam or cream first?
I'm not getting into that.
Come on.
No, I'm just not going to get into
put
it.
yourself out there. Just a little bit. Jam first. Jam first, because then it's sticky base on the scone, and then you can have the cream. If you put the cream first, the jam would slide off.
NHS leaders have warned of severe consequences for the health service if a test, track and trace system for coronavirus is not in place soon.
The NHS Confederation has written to the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, saying that any further easing of the lockdown depends on a clear strategy. Boris Johnson has pledged to introduce what he described as a world-beating tracing system by June the 1st.
The Scottish Government is set to publish its plans for easing the lockdown later. The First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, said she hoped the first phase of the process would begin a week today. Changes are expected to include allowing more outdoor activities and easing the restrictions around people meeting outside their own homes.